Under the bleeding light of dawn, the city of Varela wakes to the sound of chains. Heavy, scraping chains dragging across marble floors polished by centuries of blood and bargains. The air is thick, not just with smoke from the torches that never die, but with fear. The kind of fear that sits low in the stomach, sour and restless. It's the hour before the markets open, before the nobles come with their coin and curiosity, but already, the slaves are awake. Already, they wait. And through the narrow, winding alleys that twist behind the market square, a young woman runs, breath sharp, steps uneven, heart-breaking. Lyra. Her name, once whispered like a blessing, now spat like a curse. The rain has soaked her through, her torn dress clings to her skin like a second punishment. Bare feet cut against the cobblestones. She doesn't even flinch anymore, pain has become a language she knows by heart. Her wrists are bound, rope digging deep into skin rubbed raw. Every movement sends a sting up her arms, but she doesn't stop. She can't. Not tonight. Not when the walls of Varela feel like they're closing in. Behind her, the echo of boots grows louder, sharp, deliberate, merciless. Her father's men. The same men who used to kneel before her when she was still the noble daughter of the house of Kaladin. Now, they hunt her like a stray animal. Find her, one of them shouts. The barren one must not escape. The words hit harder than the rain. Barren. Defect. Curse. She's heard them all, but tonight they feel heavier, like stones tied to her soul. She turns sharply, ducking behind a toppled cart, breath trembling in her chest. The smell of wet earth mixes with the metallic tang of blood, hers. A drop trails from her leg down to the cobblestone, disappearing into a puddle. The world around her hums with danger and memory. The slave market looms just a few streets away. She can hear the clanging of cages being locked, the shouting of traders, the muffled sobs of the condemned. It's strange, she used to watch these auctions from the safety of a balcony, dressed in silk, her father's hand heavy on her shoulder. She never imagined she'd stand where they stood. A gust of wind cuts through the rain, whispering something she almost mistakes for her mother's voice. But it's not human, too soft, too ancient. You were never meant to be tamed. Lyra freezes. The whisper feels alive, curling around her like smoke. Her heart stutters, caught between fear and longing. For a moment, she looks down, and there, beneath her collarbone, the faint glow of silver flickers under her skin. She presses her palm against it, terrified it might be seen. The mark. The one she was born with. The one her father told her to hide. A sound, movement. A guard turning the corner. She bolts again, sprinting down the alley, breath ragged, pulse roaring in her ears. The rain blinds her, turns the cobblestones slick, but she doesn't care. She runs until her lungs burn, until the world blurs into a smear of gray and silver. Her mind flashes with memories she can't shake, her father's voice, cold and final. You were born wrong, Lyra. The gods punished me through you. No man will ever want what cannot bear life. That was the night everything ended. The night she stopped being a daughter and became a debt. Now, she's the product he's trying to sell. Thunder cracks. The alley splits open into the wide square of the market. Rows of cages shimmer under the torchlight, filled with souls stripped of names and futures. A chill races up her spine as she sees the platform being built in the center, gilded and cruel. She knows what it's for. She knows who it's for. Her body trembles, her vision spinning as the realization sinks deeper. She was never meant to survive this. Her father doesn't want her back. He wants her gone. She stumbles toward the edge of the square, clutching her side, slipping through the mud and rain. Her dress catches on an iron hook, ripping further, exposing the bruises painted across her back. She doesn't stop. Even when her knees give way, she crawls, fingers digging into the dirt. Somewhere behind her, she hears laughter, cruel, familiar. Look at the cursed one run, someone jeers. Even the gods pity her. Tears blur her sight, but she bites her lip to keep from crying out. She won't give them that satisfaction. She won't break again. A flash of light streaks across the sky, lightning so bright it splits the heavens. The storm answers her anger, the wind howling through the streets as if echoing her heart. For a moment, she feels it again, that hum under her skin, the one that feels too big for her body. Like something ancient is waking up inside her, clawing its way out. She doesn't understand it. She never has. All she knows is that when the moon is full, her body burns from the inside out, and her reflection doesn't quite look like her anymore. Tonight, the storm feels different. It feels alive. She reaches the riverbank, her legs trembling, her body shaking from exhaustion. The rain comes harder now, pounding the ground, swallowing her sobs. She collapses near the edge, mud splashing up her arms. "Why?" she whispers, voice breaking. "Why won't the moon let me die?" Her chest rises and falls, shallow and unsteady. The chains clink as she moves, a bitter reminder of how small she's become in a world that used to bow to her. She presses her forehead into the wet ground, feeling the cold seep into her bones. Then, the sound of hooves. Slow at first. Measured. Powerful. She tenses, pushing herself up weakly. Through the fog, a shape begins to form, tall, broad-shouldered, draped in a dark cloak that shimmers faintly with water. The horse beneath him is black as night, muscles rippling beneath its slick coat. The rider stops a few paces from her. For a heartbeat, the world stills, the rain quiets, the thunder pauses, even her fear hesitates. His eyes, she sees them first. Glowing faint amber beneath the shadow of his hood. They're not human eyes. He dismounts slowly, his boots sinking into the mud, his gaze never leaving hers. There's something in the way he moves, deliberate, like a man who's fought too many battles and learned not to waste effort. Lyra's pulse quickens. She wants to run, but her body refuses. Something in him holds her still. He stops a few feet away, rain dripping from the edge of his cloak. For a long moment, neither of them speaks. The silence stretches, heavy and strange, like the air itself is holding its breath. Then, in a voice that sounds both rough and calm, he says, "You shouldn't be here." She flinches. The sound of his voice feels like a wound and a warning all at once. She can't see his face, but she feels the weight of his presence, the quiet danger in it. She manages to whisper, "Who are you?" He doesn't answer right away. Instead, he kneels, not close enough to touch, but close enough for her to see the faint scars across his hands, the shimmer of something not quite human beneath his skin. "Someone who's been looking for you," he says finally. The words slice through the rain. Her heart stutters. "You're mistaken," she whispers. "No one looks for me." He tilts his head slightly. "Then maybe you've been running too long to notice." Her breath catches. He knows. Somehow, he knows. For a second, she thinks she sees a flicker of emotion in his eyes, sorrow, maybe recognition, but it's gone too quickly to be sure. The wind shifts. The scent of wet earth and smoke swirls around them, and then, faint but unmistakable, another scent, her own. Wild jasmine and ash. His jaw tightens. His pupils narrow. She doesn't understand, but he does. That scent, it's the one the old stories whispered about. The scent of the lost bloodline. He stands, voice low, barely above a growl. "You shouldn't be alive." The words sting more than they should. She lifts her chin weakly. "You sound just like them." Something flickers in his expression, regret, maybe anger. "I'm nothing like them," he says quietly. For the first time, she sees the mark on his neck, faint, glowing gold under the rain. The same mark as hers, but inverted. She doesn't move as he steps closer, his shadow falling over her. Every instinct screams to run, yet her body won't obey. His energy feels familiar. Like the storm that follows her everywhere. Finally, he says her name, not as a question, but like a truth he's carried for too long. "Lyra." Her breath trembles. "How do you know my name?" He looks at her, eyes glowing brighter now. Because it's been whispered in my dreams since the night you were born. She stares at him, the words too heavy, too impossible. The rain blurs everything between them, the fear, the confusion, the faint pulse of something neither of them understands. And for a moment, it feels like the storm is listening. The river behind her churns, the wind swirls tighter, and that mark on her chest burns again, not painfully this time, but with a strange warmth. He notices. The mark responds to me, he murmurs, almost to himself. Her voice shakes. Who are you? He hesitates. Then, softly, someone who was never supposed to find you. Lightning flashes again, and in that brief flare of light, she sees his face, strong, scarred, beautiful in a way that feels like danger. His eyes glint with something wild. He steps closer, extends a hand, not commandingly, but gently, like a promise. Come with me, he says. You don't belong here. Lyra looks down at her bound wrists, at the chains that mark her as nothing, and then up at him. There's something in his voice that makes her chest ache, not pity, not salvation, but recognition. Still, she shakes her head. You don't know what I've done. He studies her for a long moment. Rain slides down his face, mixing with the faint trace of a smirk that doesn't reach his eyes. I know what you are, he says quietly. And what you'll become. Before she can speak, thunder rolls across the horizon again, loud enough to shake the ground. He glances toward the city walls, senses sharpening. They're coming. Her pulse spikes. Who? Everyone. He moves fast, unties her wrists with one sharp motion. The rope falls away, and for the first time in years, her skin is free. Her voice trembles. Why are you helping me? He looks at her with something like defiance. Because the world doesn't deserve what it's about to lose. And just as the soldier's shouts echo down the road, he takes her hand, warm, steady, sure, and pulls her toward the mist. The storm swallows them whole. And in that chaos of thunder and rain and destiny colliding, one truth settles deep into the marrow of the night: this is not the end of Lyra's story. It's the beginning of the reckoning she was born for. If your heart beats for stories that burn with pain, power, and forbidden love, subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections. Because here, every heartbeat tells a story. Lightning clawed across the sky like a beast unleashed, tearing through the darkness with raw fury. The downpour came harder now, every drop like shattered glass against skin, and the wind carried the scent of iron and smoke from the burning torches of the slave market beyond. Kael's boots sank into the mud as he knelt beside Lyra, his breath a steady rhythm amid the chaos. For a moment, it was only the sound of rain and the faint, broken gasp of a girl who no longer believed in mercy. Her hair clung to her face, her lips pale, trembling from cold and exhaustion. He studied her, not with the eyes of a stranger, but with the pull of something ancient, something his wolf recognized before his mind could. There was power buried in her fragility. Not the kind born of strength or defiance, but the kind that survives the unthinkable and still dares to breathe. You shouldn't be here, he said quietly, his voice like distant thunder, controlled, deep, dangerous. Yet beneath the weight of command was a trace of something else: recognition. Lyra's lashes fluttered, heavy from the rain. Her lips parted to speak, but no sound came. Her throat was raw, her body trembling. She'd run until her bones screamed, until her hope bled dry, and now, this man, this stranger with eyes that glowed like wildfire, dared to look at her as if she were something sacred. She tried to pull away, but her body refused. The cold had numbed her limbs, her strength had long deserted her. When his hand touched her wrist, the heat of his palm burned against her skin, searing through the numbness, dragging her back to the unbearable awareness of being alive. And then, it happened. Her scent. It wasn't just the rain or the earth or the blood that painted her skin, it was something purer, wilder. Wild jasmine tangled with smoke. Ancient magic disguised as mortal fragrance. It hit him like a strike to the chest. His wolf surged beneath his skin, claws scraping at the surface, demanding to be freed. Kael froze. His pupils dilated. the world around him blurred. The storm itself seemed to hush, listening. That scent, impossible, forbidden, belonged to the lost bloodline. The bloodline thought wiped out generations ago. The one that could unite or destroy them all. His jaw tightened. The prophecy echoed in the back of his mind, a whisper he had long buried. When the scent of the lost one returns, the Alpha's curse shall awaken. Lyra's eyes met his, and for an instant, time fractured. He saw flashes he couldn't explain. Silver moons. Fire. A woman with the same eyes, screaming his name through centuries. His chest ached. His wolf roared. I'm not your concern, she spat weakly, her voice breaking as she turned her face away. Go back to your kingdom, Alpha. Let me die here. He didn't move. The rain pounded harder, thunder rumbling like war drums. You're wrong, Kael murmured, his tone low and dangerous, carrying the weight of an unspoken truth. You've been my concern long before tonight. Lyra shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her cracked lips. You don't even know me. His gaze softened, but his voice stayed steady. My wolf does. Before she could protest, he scooped her up effortlessly. Her frail body sagged against his chest, and for the first time, warmth spread through her like a cruel mercy. She wanted to resist, to curse him, but her voice faltered, and her fingers, once clenched in defiance, found themselves gripping the fabric of his cloak. Behind them, the sound of bells tore through the storm, sharp, metallic, merciless. The auction had begun. Kael turned, his eyes narrowing as he stared toward the heart of Varela. From the hill, the slave market blazed like an infernal stage. Men shouted over the rain, bidding for flesh and blood as if they were bartering for grain. Chains clinked, torches hissed, and through the chaos rose one voice, deep, proud, venomous. Her father. Lord Varian of House Drell. The man who had once called her his moonlight. Kael's jaw clenched. He'd heard the rumors, that Varian had fallen to debt and desperation, that he'd betrayed his lineage for silver. But seeing it unfold, hearing that father's voice echoing above the thunder, calling out prices for the daughter he had condemned as useless, that stirred something primal in Kael. He adjusted his grip on Lyra, her damp hair sticking to his neck. She stirred weakly, her lashes fluttering as her father's words sliced through the storm. 50 silvers for the barren defect. She carries no heir, no future, but her blood is noble. You'll get your price in her beauty, if not her womb. The crowd laughed. Lyra's heart twisted, her breath catching in her throat. Her vision blurred, not from the rain, but from the weight of betrayal. Kael's eyes burned gold. The wolf inside him growled, low, dangerous, uncontainable. He looked toward the torches, toward the man who had broken what was never his to destroy. His words came through clenched teeth. You're not property, he said. Not anymore. Lightning split the sky again, illuminating his face, half shadow, half fury. The storm howled, matching the storm within him. He turned from the riverbank, carrying her toward the forest edge where the mist hung thick like breath. Every step he took was defiance, every heartbeat a vow. Lyra stirred again, her voice faint, barely a whisper. Why are you helping me? Kael didn't answer at first. The question wasn't simple, not when every instinct screamed that this girl was both salvation and ruin. That her existence was tied to something he'd spent his life denying. Finally, he said, quietly but with the weight of eternity, because I can't watch you burn for a crime that isn't yours. The wind roared through the trees, bending branches, and carrying distant shouts, soldiers, no doubt, following her trail. Kael moved faster, his steps light despite her weight. The rain blurred the world into shades of silver and shadow. Behind them, the city glowed, Varela's marble towers standing proud against the storm, its sins hidden behind beauty. Ahead lay the wilderness, a place the civilized feared, where creatures like him roamed free under the moon's silent gaze. As they entered the forest, something shifted. The air thickened, humming with energy. The scent of pine and wet earth mixed with her scent, intoxicating and maddening. Kael's pulse quickened. He could hear her heartbeat, soft, uneven, fragile. His wolf pressed against his skin, desperate to emerge, to mark, to claim. But Kael fought it back. Not here. Not now. She was terrified, broken, hunted. He wouldn't let his beast be her next fear. Lyra's voice trembled. You don't know what you're doing. They'll come for you. My father, he won't stop. Kael's jaw tightened. Let him come. She looked up weakly, confusion flickering through her pain. You don't even know me, she whispered again, her eyes glassy. He met her gaze, his own softening. No, he said. But I know what it means to be betrayed by blood. The silence that followed was heavy. Raw. Human. The storm began to fade into a soft drizzle, and the forest breathed around them, leaves dripping, the earth steaming. He laid her down beneath the shelter of an old stone arch, remnants of a temple long forgotten. He took off his cloak, draped it over her, and knelt beside her once more. She tried to sit up, but her body refused. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Why didn't you let me die?" Kael's eyes darkened. Because the moon doesn't waste her chosen. Her breath hitched. She didn't understand, not yet. But something in his tone, reverent, unyielding, made her chest tighten. The sound of distant horns echoed again, soldiers, closing in. Kael's head snapped toward the sound, his instincts sharp, his muscles tensed. He turned back to her. You're safe with me, he said. It wasn't a promise. It was a vow carved from bone and blood. She looked into his eyes and saw it, the same pain that mirrored her own. A man cursed by his own nature, bound by duty and haunted by prophecy. For the first time in years, Lyra felt something she didn't recognize. Hope. The rain eased into mist. The forest held its breath. Kael rose, his silhouette framed by the dim glow of lightning far above. His wolf stirred again, restless. He could feel her scent marking him, embedding itself into every part of his being. He'd saved her tonight, but deep down, he knew what it meant. The prophecy had begun to move. And soon, every clan would know the scent of the girl who wasn't supposed to exist. He turned back once more, his voice soft but edged with fate. Rest while you can, Lyra. The world will hunt you again by sunrise. The wind howled through the trees like a warning. The storm had passed, but the war had just begun. The night stretched endlessly over the camp, heavy with the kind of silence that came after violence, a silence that wasn't peace, but exhaustion. The storm had passed, yet its ghost still lingered, clinging to the damp earth and the faint scent of blood. The air was sharp, cold, filled with the hiss of dying embers and the steady rhythm of rain dripping from the pine branches above. Inside the tent, the flicker of firelight painted shadows across rough canvas walls. Lyra lay on a bed of furs, her body still trembling with the memory of running, of being hunted, of falling. Her eyes opened slowly, as if waking from a nightmare only to realize she hadn't escaped it. Every muscle ached, every breath reminded her she was still alive, and she wasn't sure if that was mercy or punishment. For a long time, she didn't move. She just listened, to the fire's low crackle, to the whisper of wind outside, to the faint sound of footsteps pacing somewhere close. Her heart thudded in her chest, slow but unsteady. Then the memories came. They never came softly. Her father's voice broke through first, deep, commanding, and cruelly calm. An infertile daughter is no daughter of mine. The gods curse her womb and her worth. She could still hear the cold echo of those words bouncing off the marble pillars of their estate, see the way her mother had trembled, torn between love and fear. Lyra had begged, not for forgiveness, but for a reason. And her father had given her none. That night had smelled of roses and smoke. Her mother's tears had fallen onto Lyra's hands as the guards dragged her away. And in the courtyard, her father had turned his back, his silence more final than any blade. They had paraded her before the Roman nobles, her wrists bound in gold chains, her name stripped like skin. She remembered the laughter, the whispers, the way they'd called her the silent one because she hadn't cried. Not once. She had stared at them all, men who thought themselves gods, and sworn she would never give them the sound of her pain. Now, in the flickering light of Kael's campfire, that promise still lived inside her. But it was breaking. Her body hurt too much. Her soul hurt even more. She turned slightly, the furs rustling beneath her, and saw him. Kael. He sat across from her, silent, watching. His posture was composed, too composed, the kind of calm that didn't come from peace, but from restraint. He was sharpening a dagger, the slow scrape of steel against stone echoing like a heartbeat. Every movement was deliberate, controlled. The firelight caught the curve of his jaw, the faint scar along his temple, the wolf's hunger hidden behind human eyes. Lyra's throat tightened. He looked like danger carved into flesh, yet there was something in him that didn't belong to the darkness. Something gentler, buried deep, that she didn't trust herself to name. Her voice came out rough, almost broken. You should have left me. Kael didn't look up right away. The dagger glinted as he set it down beside him. I couldn't, he said simply. His tone wasn't defensive, it was quiet, matter of fact, as if that truth required no explanation. Lyra frowned. Why? You don't even know me. He finally met her gaze. His eyes glowed faintly gold in the firelight, not fully human, not fully beast. I know your scent, he said. And I know what it means. She tensed. Her hands instinctively went to her neck, where beneath her collarbone, the faint silver light still pulsed beneath her skin, the mark that had always frightened her. My blood, she whispered, voice trembling. It's cursed. Kael leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees, his voice low. No, he said. Your blood is ancient. The words hung in the air between them, heavy, dangerous, impossible. Lyra shook her head, turning away. You don't know what you're saying. Kael's gaze followed her. I do, he said quietly. That mark on your skin, it's not a curse. It's a lineage. The old clans called it the moon's brand. I thought it was a myth. Her breath caught. She clutched at the faint glow beneath her skin, fingers trembling. I've had it since I was born, she murmured. My mother used to cover it with ashes, said it would draw death if anyone saw. But it always comes back. Every full moon, it burns. Kael watched the way she pressed her palm against her chest, as if she could silence it. There was fear in her voice, not of him, but of herself. Tell me, he said softly, what happens when it burns? She hesitated. Her gaze went distant, unfocused, lost in the fog of memory. I feel it in my bones first, she said. Like something waking up inside me. My skin heats, my vision blurs, and the world starts to hum, like every sound, every heartbeat, is alive. But then, her voice faltered. Nothing. No shift. No change. Just pain. She looked at him then, eyes glassy with a mix of shame and fury. The pack used to gather every full moon. I'd stand there, waiting for it to happen. But it never did. I stayed human while they turned to wolves. They called me an omen. A cursed half-breed. A symbol of the moon's displeasure. Her hands curled into fists. They banished me when I was 15. My father only took me back when my mother begged him to. And when the healers confirmed I couldn't bear children, he sold me to pay his debts. Kael's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes flickered, the faintest shadow of rage. Not the loud kind that burned quickly, but the quiet, dangerous kind that simmered in silence. Your father, he said slowly, is a coward. Lyra flinched, but didn't argue. Kael stood, pacing the length of the tent. The movement was restless, his energy too wild for the confined space. He sold power he didn't understand, he said. The mark on you, that's not just blood. That's prophecy. Lyra's breath hitched. Prophecy? Kael turned to her, his voice low, steady. There was a time before the clans fractured. When the moon blessed one bloodline with her essence, a bridge between human and wolf. They could command both, balance the two. But the last of that blood vanished after the War of Fangs. The story said the bloodline died, until tonight. Lyra shook her head violently. You're wrong. I'm not some prophecy. I can't even shift. Kael took a slow breath. Maybe not yet. Her chest rose and fell unevenly. Don't, she whispered. Don't give me false hope. I've had enough of that. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating off his skin. His voice softened. Hope isn't false, Lyra. It's dangerous, but it's real. For a moment, neither spoke. The fire crackled, the wind whispered, and outside, the forest sighed as if it, too, was listening. Lyra turned her gaze toward the flames. Do you ever wish you weren't born what you are? Kael blinked. The question caught him off guard. She looked at him, eyes shining in the dim light. You carry it well, the strength, the power. But I see it in your eyes. There's a part of you that hates it, isn't there? Kael's jaw tightened. He didn't answer at first. Then, with quiet honesty, he said, every day. Lyra nodded, her voice small. Then you understand. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was heavy with unspoken understanding. Kael moved to sit beside her, not too close, but close enough that she could feel his presence. You think being barren makes you worthless, he said. But the moon doesn't measure worth by the womb. She laughed, bitter, broken. Tell that to the world that sold me. I just did. Lyra looked at him sharply, but he didn't look away. There was no pity in his gaze, only conviction. The kind that couldn't be faked. Her heart twisted. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not as a victim, not as a thing to be pitied, but as if she were something more. Something whole. The fire crackled louder, and she realized her hands had stopped shaking. Kael leaned back slightly, eyes still on her. You said the mark burns every full moon? Yes. He nodded slowly. Then tomorrow night, we'll see what it wants. Lyra's stomach nodded. You don't understand. The pain, it's unbearable. Every time it happens, I feel like I'm being torn apart from the inside. Kael's expression softened. Then I'll be there when it does. Her breath caught. Why? He didn't hesitate. Because I want to know what you are. And because I owe the moon one truth, to protect what she chose. She stared at him, her chest tight. There were too many questions, too many things she didn't understand, but his words anchored her. Outside, the rain had stopped completely. The night air was still, almost reverent. Lyra looked at the fire, at the faint dance of light that reminded her of warmth she hadn't felt in years. Her thoughts drifted back, to her mother's touch, to the nights she'd looked up at the moon and begged it to make her normal, to make her belong. And now, here she was, wrapped in the cloak of a stranger who smelled like rain and danger, being told she might be something sacred. Her throat tightened again. If what you say is true, she whispered, then why do I feel like I'm cursed, not blessed? Kael's gaze held hers, deep and unyielding. Because blessings often come wrapped in pain. The moon never gives without testing what you can endure. Lyra's eyes glistened. She didn't know why his words hurt and healed her all at once. She turned away, her fingers brushing the mark on her skin. It pulsed faintly, a soft rhythm, alive, awake, waiting. Kael watched her quietly, sensing the turmoil within her, the war between who she'd been told she was and who she might actually be. Finally, he rose and moved toward the tent's opening. The cold air spilled in, carrying the scent of pine and distant ash. Get some rest, he said quietly. Tomorrow, the moon will decide if she's done testing you. Lyra lay back, her eyes fixed on the flickering light above her. The fire's glow softened, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel completely alone. But as she drifted between waking and sleep, the faint hum beneath her skin deepened, slow, rhythmic, alive. And far away, under the veil of clouds, the moon began to rise. The air around them thickened, heavy with the scent of rain, iron, and something older, the echo of power that hadn't stirred in centuries. Kael's arms tightened around Lyra's trembling form as her pulse thrashed beneath his grip, wild and frantic, like a creature trying to break free. Her breath came out in jagged bursts, each one a struggle against the visions clawing through her mind. The firelight from the ruins flared, shadows leaping across her face as though the world itself bent toward her awakening. When her scream faded, there was only silence, deep, consuming, sacred. Kael set her down gently upon the cold stone altar at the shrine's center. Her body glistened with sweat, her hair clinging to her skin, the silver mark at her collarbone still glowing like an ember refusing to die. He stared at it, the sign of the lost moon bloodline. Legend said only one of her kind would ever be born again, the one whose blood could rekindle the flame of the first wolves. He had never believed such myths until tonight. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused and haunted. "What did you do to me?" she breathed. Kael knelt beside her, his jaw tight. "I didn't do this." "You did. The shrine responded to you." She laughed weakly, the sound sharp and broken. "To me? I'm nothing. A discarded daughter. A failed wolf." His hand moved before he could stop it, fingers tilting her chin upward until their eyes locked. "You think failure can awaken ancient fire? You think weakness bends the moonlight?" His voice was low, controlled, but it vibrated with something deeper, reverence, maybe even fear. Lyra stared back, confusion and defiance warring in her gaze. "You don't understand. My power, it's wrong. Every time it stirs, someone gets hurt. When I was a child, the crops died. The pack blamed me. My mother begged the elders to hide me. They said I carried the curse of the ash moon." Kael's expression darkened. The ash moon wasn't a curse. It was the last stand of the first mother. The night she burned herself to bind the beasts of the world under one law, the law of blood and bond. He rose, pacing slowly before the altar, his cloak dragging through the wet earth. "You're her descendant. The flame didn't die. It hid, inside you." Lyra sat up, the movement stiff but defiant. "You speak of me like I'm a weapon." He turned to her. "No. You're the prophecy's heart." The words hit her harder than she expected. A lifetime of rejection, a being called broken, twisted into something unbearable inside her chest. Her throat tightened. "And what if I don't want to be?" Kael stepped closer, his shadow swallowing hers. "It doesn't matter what you want. The moment you bled beneath that moon, the world took notice." She could feel it now, the hum beneath the earth, the pulse beneath her skin. Every heartbeat echoed with an unfamiliar rhythm, something ancient and wild that wasn't fully hers. Her voice trembled. "You talk as if this power belongs to the world, not to me." Kael stopped inches from her. "Because it does." His gaze softened, just barely. "But the world doesn't know mercy. You'll need control before it consumes you." Her chest tightened. "And you think you can help me control it?" His silence was answer enough. He didn't claim to be her savior, only her shield. The wind picked up, swirling through the ruins, carrying whispers from the trees. The shrine's obsidian statues seemed to shimmer under the moonlight, their eyes reflecting spectral fire. Lyra touched the glowing veins on the ground. "This place, it feels alive." Kael nodded. "It's a sanctuary of the old wolves. When the first pack rose, this was where they swore allegiance to the flame that created them." "And that flame is tied to me?" she asked. "It's tied to your blood," he said. "Your scent carries both the ash of endings and the jasmine of rebirth. You are balance itself, destruction and renewal. That's what the prophecy meant by barren flame. Not empty, restrained." Her hands trembled as she stared at the faint shimmer beneath her skin. "Then why do I feel like I'm breaking apart?" Kael's eyes softened for the first time. "Because power never comes without pain." For a long moment, silence filled the space between them, fragile, but charged. She wanted to look away, but his gaze held her captive. There was something dangerous in the way he looked at her, not desire, not pity, but recognition. Like he had been searching for her his entire life and was terrified he'd finally found her. She swallowed hard. "What are you not telling me, Kael?" His jaw flexed. "The prophecy doesn't only speak of you. It speaks of two flames, one that awakens, and one that must guide it." Her pulse quickened. "And who is the other?" He met her eyes. "Me." The word hung in the air like thunder. She recoiled slightly. "You're saying our fates are bound?" "Bound by blood, by moon, by the first vow." Lyra's voice cracked with disbelief. "That's impossible. I don't even know you." Kael's expression darkened. "And yet your scent called my wolf across miles. You think that's coincidence?" She shook her head, refusing to let him see the tremor in her hands. "I won't be part of your prophecy. I won't be used." He stepped forward, his tone deepening. "You think I want this? You think I asked for it? The moment I found you, my wolf nearly tore me apart. You've changed something in me I can't control." Her breath hitched. "Then stay away." He took another step, slow and deliberate. "I can't." The silence between them burned hotter than fire. Her body screamed to move, to run, but her instincts held her in place. Every breath he took drew her closer to the edge of something dangerous, a bond neither of them had chosen. The moonlight shifted again, bathing them both in silver. Kael's eyes flickered, wolf gold burning beneath the human calm. "The world is stirring because of you, Lyra. The clans will come. The Romans will follow. And when they do, your power will either save us or destroy everything we've ever known." Her throat tightened. "Then teach me before it's too late." His expression softened, but his voice remained steady. "Teaching you means binding you to me. Once that bond is made, it can't be undone." Lyra's heart pounded. "And if I refuse?" "Then you'll burn." The fire between them wasn't from the shrine. It came from something older, the pull of destiny neither wanted to acknowledge but both could feel in their bones. Lyra turned away, her breath shaking. "I spent my whole life running from what I am. Now you tell me I was never free." Kael's voice lowered, rough and haunted. "None of us are free from fate. But we can choose how we meet it." He walked past her, his cloak brushing her arm. "Rest. Tomorrow, we begin." She wanted to argue, to demand answers he wasn't ready to give, but exhaustion claimed her. The firelight dimmed, the air humming with unseen power. That night, Lyra dreamt again, this time, not of pain or loss, but of wolves kneeling before her, whispering her name as the moon turned blood red. In the distance, Kael stood in shadow, watching with eyes that burned like gold against the dark. When she woke, the mark on her collarbone pulsed softly, and her first thought wasn't fear. It was his name. Kael. And deep inside, beneath layers of fear and denial, her wolf stirred. Awake at last. The prophecy had begun. Dawn fractured through the forest in pale shards of gold and ash. The ruins that had been silent through the night now hummed with tension, the kind that precedes bloodshed. Kael stood at the entrance of the shrine, shoulders squared, his hand hovering over the hilt of his blade. Every instinct in him screamed warning. The wind carried it first, the metallic tang of iron, the stench of soldiers, the steady rhythm of marching boots crushing the earth beneath their weight. Lyra stirred inside the shrine, her eyes heavy with unrest. She felt the tremor before she saw it, the ground quivering under the burden of approaching power. Her chest tightened. Something was coming. Something meant for her. Kael turned, his voice low. "Stay inside. Do not move." She swallowed hard. "What's happening?" "War," he said simply, his tone cold, controlled, but his wolf was already pacing inside, restless and hungry. The forest broke apart as armored men surged into the clearing. At their front rode General Cashin, a name Kael hadn't spoken in years, but one that haunted his every scar. Cashin, once his brother, now the Emperor's hound. The general dismounted with slow precision, his dark armor gleaming under the fractured light. His gaze swept over the ruins until it found Kael, and then the girl. "So it's true," Kael said, his voice sharp as steel. "The Alpha of the North hides a witch in his den." Kael's jaw tensed. "Leave, Kael. You don't belong here." The general smiled, cruel and knowing. "She's not yours to keep. The girl is collateral, property bought and sold to cover her father's debts." Lyra flinched at the word. Property. It struck her like a blade. Kael stepped forward, his eyes glowing faintly beneath the dawn. "Touch her, and you'll never see another sunrise." Kael laughed, a deep, hollow sound. "Still loyal to your lost causes, brother. Tell me, what's she worth? Enough to die for? Enough to damn your pack?" Kael's response was a low growl that trembled through the ground. "She's worth more than your empire." Kael lifted his hand. The air split with the whistle of drawn steel. "Then let's see what your worth buys." The first arrow flew. Kael caught it midair, the shaft snapping between his fingers. Then the clearing erupted into chaos. Wolves leapt from the shadows, Kael's sentinels, fierce and loyal, their bodies twisting midair as bones shattered and reformed into fur and muscle. The clash of steel against claw echoed like thunder. Blood spattered across moss and stone. Lyra pressed herself against the cold wall of the shrine, heart hammering in her chest. The scent of blood was everywhere, thick, suffocating. Every cry, every snarl, ripped through her like she was the one being torn apart. Her eyes found Kael in the storm, a blur of motion and fury. He was magnificent and terrible, the embodiment of what the legends whispered, the Alpha who bowed to no one. His blade carved through soldiers with precision, his wolf form flickering beneath his skin with every strike. Then it happened. A flash of movement. A soldier broke through the melee and slashed across Kael's side. The sound of the blade sinking into flesh tore through the chaos. Kael staggered, his blood spilling black and silver, shimmering unnaturally under the light. Something inside Lyra shattered. The fear, the helplessness, it all dissolved into something deeper, something ancient. The mark at her collarbone flared. She didn't think. She felt. Her body seized as power surged through her veins, scorching, alive. The silver light burst from her hands, spiraling outward in waves that shook the earth. The shrine answered her, the stones glowing, the obsidian wolves howling in unison as if remembering their first oath. Kael turned, shouting, "Stop her! She'll burn us all." Too late. The silver flame erupted, engulfing everything in its reach. Soldiers screamed as their armor melted, as fire licked at their shadows. But the flame didn't burn like mortal fire, it consumed essence, memory, life. It left no smoke, no ash, only silence. And in that silence, Lyra stood in the center, eyes glowing like molten silver, her expression blank, her voice gone. Kael, bleeding, forced himself to his feet. He stared at her, the girl who was no longer just a girl. All warred with fear in his gaze. "Lyra." She turned slowly toward him, the light fading from her hands. When she saw the blood on his side, her breath caught. "I didn't mean." But her voice faltered. Around them, the battlefield was gone, no corpses, no blood. Only charred soil, still humming with residual power. Kael stumbled forward, his hand reaching her shoulder. She flinched, trembling. "Don't touch me," she whispered. "I can't control it." He caught her wrist anyway, his grip firm despite his wound. "You already did. If you hadn't, we'd both be dead." Her chest heaved, panic thick in her throat. "I killed them. I killed." "They came to kill you," Kael said, his voice soft but fierce. "Don't you dare apologize for surviving." Lyra's eyes filled with tears she didn't feel. The cold in her chest spread, wrapping around her ribs, suffocating. "I didn't feel anything," she murmured. "Not pain. Not fear. Just, nothing." Kael studied her face, the trembling lips, the hollow stare. The flame doesn't destroy out of rage. It judges. It burns what doesn't belong. And if it decides I don't belong? He didn't answer. Behind them, the forest groaned. Kashan, scorched and wounded, dragged himself from the edge of the clearing. His voice rasped, hoarse but defiant. The prophecy lives. Kael turned, eyes narrowing. You should have stayed down. Kashan's laugh was wet with blood. The Emperor will hear of this. He'll hunt her. You can't protect what was meant for the gods. Kael moved forward, but Lyra stopped him. Her voice was barely a whisper. Let him go. Kael's jaw clenched. He'll bring death with him. She looked past him, toward the forest now heavy with the weight of her sin. He already did. Kashan staggered away, disappearing into the trees. When his shadow was gone, silence fell once more. Only the soft hiss of dying embers remained. Kael turned back to her. You need to move. Others will come. Lyra's legs trembled, her power spent. I don't know if I can. He sheathed his blade and lifted her into his arms. She didn't resist this time. Her head fell against his chest, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat grounding her amidst the storm inside her mind. As they moved through the ruined forest, her thoughts churned, flashes of what she'd done, of the soldiers' screams, of the silver fire that had answered her rage. Kael, she whispered, her voice barely there. What am I? He didn't look down. You're the storm the gods tried to bury. Her throat tightened. Then why do I feel so empty? Because power always takes before it gives. They reached the edge of the northern cliffs by dusk. Below them, the valley stretched wide and endless, rivers glinting like veins of glass beneath the setting sun. Smoke rose in the distance. The Empire was already burning the border villages in retaliation. Kael set her down carefully. They'll come for you. Kashan won't stop until he's dragged you to the Emperor's feet. Lyra turned to him, her voice quiet but steady. And you? Will you stay? His gaze held hers, unwavering, heavy with something he couldn't name. Until my last breath. The silence between them deepened. The wind carried the faint scent of rain again, mingled with her jasmine and ash. Lyra stepped closer, her eyes searching his. Why? Kael's hand brushed a stray strand of hair from her face. Because the moment I found you, my wolf knew, this was never about the prophecy. It was about choice. And I choose you. Her lips parted, words caught somewhere between disbelief and need. You don't even know who I am. I know enough, he said softly. You're the fire that breaks the chain. The mark on her collarbone pulsed in response, faint but insistent. She looked down at it, then back at him. If I'm the fire, then what are you? Kael's mouth curved, but there was no humor in it. The one who burns beside you. For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them trembled with something unsaid, something too dangerous to name. Then the wind shifted again, carrying a distant howl. Not a wolf's. Something darker. Kael's expression hardened. They've found us. Lyra turned, eyes wide. Who? The hunters, he said. Not men. Not wolves. Things the Empire made to kill what they fear. She reached for his arm. Then we run. He shook his head. No. This time, we fight. Lyra felt the pulse of her power stir again, but it came slower now, heavier. The exhaustion from earlier still clawed at her. Kael saw it, and stepped closer until their foreheads nearly touched. Don't fight alone, he murmured. Let me in. Her breath hitched. What does that mean? He met her gaze. The bond. If we link, even for a moment, I can help you control it. But once done, there's no going back. Lyra's heart thundered. And if I lose myself? Then I'll bring you back, he said, his voice low, certain. The forest shuddered again, closer this time. Lyra closed her eyes. Do it. Kael's hands framed her face. The world narrowed to the space between them, his breath against hers, his pulse aligning with her own. When his lips brushed her mark, the air split open. Silver light burst outward, weaving between them like threads of fire and shadow, binding, consuming, merging. Her power surged, but this time it didn't burn. It flowed. Kael's wolf rose beneath his skin, answering hers in perfect rhythm. For a heartbeat, two souls became one, flame and fury, bound by fate and choice. And when the hunters emerged from the darkness, the world itself trembled. Because the prophecy was no longer a whisper. It had found its voice. The forest held its breath that night. Not even the wind dared whisper. The fire between them crackled low, feeding off the broken branches Lyra had gathered, its glow casting amber halos across Kael's bare shoulders. Blood traced dark lines down his skin, glinting where it met the light. He sat quietly, watching the flames twist, each flicker reflecting the storm beneath his calm. Lyra knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she dipped a cloth into the bowl of warm water. The scent of herbs filled the air, wild mint, crushed bark, and the faint trace of smoke that clung to her hair. She pressed the cloth against his wound, and he flinched, though he said nothing. The silence between them stretched, thick with everything neither dared to say. "Does it hurt?" she asked, voice soft, fragile. He smiled faintly, not looking at her. "Pain means I'm still alive." Her gaze lingered on the cut, the blood still seeping despite her care. "You shouldn't have fought for me. You almost died." "I told you," Kael said, his tone low and steady. "You were worth the fight." She swallowed hard, wringing the cloth until her knuckles turned white. "You don't even know me." He finally looked up. "Don't I?" Lyra froze under his stare. His eyes were amber, bright and ancient, like something wild barely held back by the shape of a man. There was no judgment there, only quiet recognition. The kind that made her want to hide and be seen all at once. She tore her gaze away. "They'll keep coming for me. The Emperor, the hunters, my father. They'll come for us," Kael corrected gently. "You're not alone in this anymore." Her hands faltered. "Then you should go. Before you lose everything because of me." He leaned forward, his voice a whisper that slid through the space between them. "I already did. A long time ago." The firelight danced across his face, revealing something raw in the curve of his mouth, grief that had never healed, ghosts that still clung to him. Lyra hesitated. "What happened?" Kael's jaw tightened. He looked away, as though the truth itself was heavier than the wound bleeding down his side. "My father wasn't the leader the stories tell you. He was cruel. He believed strength came from fear. When I was young, I defied him, tried to free a village he ordered burned. He called me a traitor. When I challenged him, I didn't win because I was stronger. I won because he hesitated. Because for the first time, he saw the monster he'd made." Lyra's breath caught. "You killed him." "I didn't have a choice," Kael said, his tone steady, but the pain beneath it was unmistakable. "And when the blood touched the ground, the curse began. My pack fell under it, the wolves of the north bound to a shadow that eats at us every full moon. I wasn't born alpha. I became it through blood and ruin." She set the cloth aside, the weight of his confession sinking between them. The fire popped softly. "You think saving me will undo that?" He met her gaze again. "No. But maybe seeing you live will remind me why it's still worth trying." Lyra stared at him, words caught in her throat. His honesty unnerved her. No one had ever offered her truth without expecting obedience in return. She looked down at his wound again, pressing gently against the bandage she'd made. "You should rest," she said quietly. "You've lost too much blood." "So have you," he murmured. She frowned. "I'm not bleeding. Not on the outside." Her breath stilled. The fire's light softened, flickering against her face. Kael leaned back slightly, wincing, but his eyes stayed on her. "You carry your pain like armor, Lyra. But pain isn't a shield, it's a wound that never closes if you keep feeding it. She turned away. You don't understand. Then make me. The words hung there, heavy, daring. Lyra stared into the flames. Her fingers tightened around the edge of her skirt. When I was a child, she began, her voice trembling, I used to dream of the moon. I thought she was my mother's voice calling to me. I'd sneak outside just to feel her light. But when the bleeding stopped, the night I was told I could never bear children, my father said the moon had turned her face away. That I was no longer a daughter of the gods. That I was useless. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. He sold me the next morning. Said it was better to earn silver than shame. Kael's eyes darkened. The muscles in his jaw flexed, his hands curling into fists. He'll pay for that. She shook her head. He already has. He lost me. Kael leaned forward, his voice softer now, almost reverent. You were never his to lose. Lyra met his gaze again. The anger she expected wasn't there. Only compassion, deep and unwavering. It frightened her more than hatred ever could. I can't trust anyone, she whispered, the words spilling before she could stop them. He didn't flinch. Then trust what you feel. The silence that followed was fragile, like a held breath. Her eyes flickered to his hand, resting near hers. The temptation to reach out was unbearable, so she didn't. But her pulse betrayed her, quickening until she felt the echo of his heartbeat answering it. Kael's gaze drifted to her lips, then to her trembling hands. He didn't move closer. He didn't need to. The air between them did it for him. Tell me something, she said finally, voice low. Why risk yourself for me? You don't even know if I'm what the prophecy says. Kael smiled faintly. Because I stopped believing in prophecies a long time ago. But I believe in signs. And you, Lyra, you're all the signs I've been running from. She looked down, blinking back the tears that burned her eyes. If I stay, I'll bring you nothing but war. He reached out then, slowly, carefully, and brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. His fingers were rough, warm, grounding. Then let it come. I've fought all my life for something worth dying for. For once, I'd rather fight for something worth living for. Lyra froze, her breath catching. The firelight painted him in gold and shadow, his eyes glowing faintly under the moonlight that slipped through the canopy. He looked both human and not, like the stories she'd been told, come to life. She wanted to lean into that touch, to believe that safety could exist outside herself. But trust was a foreign language, one her body no longer knew how to speak. So she pulled back, barely. Just enough to make the distance known. Kael didn't chase her retreat. He only nodded, accepting it. Then trust me when I say this, you don't owe anyone your pain. Not even yourself. Lyra swallowed hard. The fire crackled, casting fleeting shapes across his face. And if I can't stop? He leaned closer, his voice a low murmur that brushed against her skin like a vow. Then I'll carry it with you. Her throat ached. She hated how much she wanted to believe him. Why, she asked, her voice cracking again. Why would you carry something that could destroy you? Kael's gaze softened. Because maybe that's how we save each other. For a long time, neither spoke. The fire burned low, and the moon climbed higher, silvering the edges of their shadows. Finally, Lyra rose to her feet, her legs trembling from exhaustion and emotion. She turned away from him, staring into the darkness beyond the clearing. You should rest, she said again, quieter this time. Kael didn't move. And you? I don't sleep easily, she admitted. Then stay near the fire. It keeps the nightmares small. Lyra's lips curved faintly, the ghost of a smile. You speak like someone who knows them well. Kael's eyes flickered toward the flames. I used to dream of peace. Now I only dream of things I can't undo. She looked back at him then, truly looked, at the scars that marked his arms, the quiet strength in his posture, the sadness behind his steady voice. For the first time, she didn't see a savior. She saw a man just as broken as she was, holding his pieces together through will alone. Lyra took a breath. "You said you'd carry my pain," she murmured. "Then trust me enough to share yours." Kael lifted his gaze, surprise flickering in it. "Careful, Lyra. When you invite a wolf to bear his wounds, he rarely stops at the scars." She didn't flinch. "Maybe I don't want him to." The corner of his mouth lifted, not in mockery, but in quiet admiration. And then, without warning, a faint tremor rolled through the earth beneath them. Lyra tensed. Kael was already on his feet, his instincts shifting in an instant from vulnerability to vigilance. "Something's coming," he said. Lyra turned toward the forest, her heart pounding. "More hunters?" "No," Kael murmured, his eyes glowing faintly. "Something older." The fire hissed, shrinking back as a cold wind swept through the clearing. Lyra felt it, an echo of the same power that had burned through her veins earlier. It called to her, distant yet intimate. Kael stepped in front of her, his posture protective. "Whatever happens next," he said, his voice low and steady, "don't run from me. Trust me, or leave. But choose now." Lyra's breath trembled. She looked at him, at the man who had fought armies and faced gods just to keep her breathing. Every fear she had screamed for her to run. But something deeper, something older than fear, rooted her where she stood. She met his gaze. "Then I trust you." Kael's expression softened, the faintest relief crossing his face. "Good." The forest groaned again, the shadows shifting like something alive. Kael reached for his weapon, but Lyra's hand found his arm first. "Whatever comes," she said, "we face it together." Kael's eyes held hers for a long, wordless moment. Then he nodded once, slow and sure. And as the wind howled through the trees, the fire flared brighter, as though the moon herself approved. That night, two souls who had spent their lives running from the world finally stopped. Not because they'd found safety, but because they'd found something far rarer. Each other. The forest swallowed her cries. Branches tore at her arms as Lyra stumbled through the mist, her breath breaking, her pulse frantic. The moon carved streaks of silver through the canopy, tracing her path like an accusation. Every step was an echo of the lie she had lived, the betrayal that had cracked the fragile world she was beginning to trust. Kael's voice still rang in her skull, deep, raw, trembling at the edges. "Before I loved you." Loved her, yet he had come to end her. She pressed her palms to her ears as if she could drown it out. The mark beneath her skin pulsed with heat, burning her like a brand of fate. She wanted it gone, wanted the prophecy, the power, the blood, all of it ripped out. The fire inside her answered with defiance, refusing to die. She collapsed near the river's edge, the same river that once ran beside her childhood home. The same one she had bathed in before her father sold her to the market. The water now reflected a face she barely recognized, eyes too bright, veins laced with silver light. The flame within her was awake, alive, merciless. "Why me?" Her whisper scattered like ash. The reflection rippled, and for a moment, she saw not herself but something ancient, eyes of silver flame, a crown of wolves, a shadowed empire burning in the distance. The prophecy mocked her from the water surface, refusing to fade. She clenched her fists. The soil beneath her quivered. The forest seemed to breathe with her fury. Behind her, a twig snapped. Kael emerged from the dark. His clothes were torn, his shoulder bleeding from the earlier fight, his eyes hollow. He had followed her, of course he had. His wolf had probably never stopped tracking her. "Lyra," he said softly. "Don't," she hissed, standing to face him. The air between them sparked like flint and steel. "Don't say my name like it means something." He took a cautious step closer. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," she snapped. "You were sent to kill me." The council was right. The world only ever wanted me dead. Kael's jaw tightened. "That was before I knew what you were. Before I knew what I was." His words carried weight she couldn't ignore, but she didn't let them land. Stop pretending this is fate. You made a choice. He moved closer, rain beginning to fall again, light at first, then harder, each drop a drumbeat in the silence between them. And I chose you. Too late, she whispered. Lightning flashed. She saw him clearly then, his hair plastered to his face, his chest rising and falling, eyes rimmed with guilt and something deeper, devotion, perhaps, or self-destruction. He looked like a man at war with himself. You lied to me, she said, her voice breaking. You held me like I mattered, then you stood in front of them and let me burn. I was trying to protect you. By letting them humiliate me? They would have killed you if I fought harder. She laughed, a hollow, broken sound. They already did. The words cut through him. His breath hitched, his hand trembling as if he wanted to reach for her but didn't dare. Lyra, please. Listen to me. Her power surged again, trembling beneath her skin. The river began to shimmer, its surface flickering with silver light. Don't come closer. He froze, torn between instinct and reason. His wolf stirred beneath his skin, restless. If you lose control, the flame will consume everything. Maybe it should. The trees groaned. The ground split. The same power that saved them before now roared like a living storm. Kael lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. His touch burned, grounding and igniting all at once. Look at me, he shouted. You're not the monster they say you are. You're mine. Her body went still, trembling. Don't call me that. It's the truth. It's a curse. He pulled her closer, the rain pouring harder now, steam rising where it hit her flaming skin. Then let it curse us both. She looked up, eyes meeting his wolf's gaze bleeding through, gold and raw. The world around them seemed to fall away. Time held